Okay, everybody, now we're going to be talking about roles. Now, the difference between roles and norms is that roles are pretty much, norms are pretty much implicit. In other words, they kind of develop as the group works together, and they're not necessarily specifically stated. They're just more or less expectations about how people should behave, and what people do in the groups. Roles are more structured. They're more specific about this person takes this role, therefore they do this. This person takes that role, therefore they do that. That kind of thing. So basically, they have identified roles. For example, like a leader is a role. A devil's advocate is a role. And these particular kinds of roles that develop in a group have specific sets of expectations that the individuals who occupy those roles have to do. This is the roles they need to play, just as if they were performing. And again, it's independent of individuals. In other words, you have the role of a leader, but it doesn't mean that it could be one person or it could be another person. It doesn't matter who it is, but the role exists for whatever person takes it. It has some flexibility, but pretty much it does have a structure involved where you can't really deviate too far away from what is expected from the role. But roles are very important. In other words, it provides certainly a good deal of structure to the group. It defines who does what. It creates some organization, allows some things to get done if people can better know their roles. It defines responsibility. So it's a very important aspect, important aspect of group activity, specifically when a group is doing something that maybe involves a lot of complexity. Then we need to have the roles pretty clear, I think, in order to get the job done. Okay. Basically, when roles start to form, it's called role differentiation. When people start to fall into roles, and realize this again. In other words, you don't have to necessarily have those set roles before the group gets together. The roles can develop as the group interacts with each other, but they are still different from norms. They're still kind of like structured where a person would take a particular role. Okay? One way to look at roles is in terms of a general categorization. You can categorize some roles as task roles and others as relationship roles. Okay? Task roles are involved in the performance of what the group actually has to do, the task of the group. So maybe you have on a particular, activity, let's say an assembly line or something like that. You're working on or people working on a particular project, putting some device together. Maybe one person puts together one device, is in charge of putting together one device. Maybe another person is involved in checking it at the end, make sure everything is put together correctly. That kind of thing, but these roles develop. But those are roles that are dealing with doing the task at hand. Okay. Relationship roles are roles that are involving, building up the bonds among the members, making, perhaps keeping a light spirit, making jokes, keeping everybody motivated, keeping everybody happy. Think about a team. Think about a sports team, like a baseball team, right? So the task role might be, let's say, a second baseman or a pitcher or a shortstop. They have particular roles that they have to play when it comes to the job at hand. When they're never on a team, you may also have somebody who will kind of motivate the rest of the players, get everybody excited, get everybody focused, that kind of thing, and get everybody's spirit up. And that might be more of a relationship role, keeping everybody happy. So maybe preventing infighting, that kind of thing. So in a group, you have roles that are involved in both, dealing with the task and dealing with relationships among the members. And there are a number of different theories about roles that we can talk about in terms of how they develop and what their function is and whatnot. So the functional theory of roles looks at, they basically identify three general categories of roles: task roles, relational roles, and individualistic roles. And they, in their observations of group interactions, they kind of identified certain roles that may or may not, roles that came out in their interaction that may or may not exist in certain groups. But in other words, perhaps you've been in groups and you can identify some of these. So let's take a look, for example, at the task roles. So here are a list of the task roles that come from that theory. Okay. So for example, you have the initiator / contributor. Recommends novel ideas about the problem at hand, new ways to approach the problem, or possible solutions not yet considered. So this is somebody who is coming up with an idea and giving an idea and presenting it to the group. An opinion seeker is someone who asks for, what your attitudes are about what do you think about this particular idea, about this particular task, So they're seeking opinions about that. An orienter perhaps refocuses the discussion on the topic whenever necessary. Perhaps you've been before where your group starts going off on a different tangent. It starts talking about stuff that's not related to what the task at hand is. Maybe the orienter says, "Okay, people, let's get back to talking about what we need to do here." Orienters are very important in making sure that meetings don't go longer than necessary. And of course, you have the recorder who takes notes and maintains records. But again, these are the particular types of task roles that were identified in those researchers' observations. And of course, there are also the relationship roles, and we talked about that, how that's important about building bonds and keeping everything. So an encourager rewards others through agreement, warmth, and praise. So yeah, this is encouraging, saying, "Hey, that's a great idea, good job," that kind of thing, and that keeps everybody. And then there's the harmonizer that deals with mediating conflicts. A compromiser who might shift his or her opinion in order to reduce the conflict. A follower accepts the ideas offered and serves as an audience for the group. So these are, again, these are the relationship roles that they discovered. Finally, there are these individual roles, and these are roles that take place in a group activity that really aren't necessarily very helpful in terms of getting the task done or for even developing cohesive bonds among the members. These are people who perhaps, for whatever reason, are separating themselves in some way from what's happening in the group. And again, you'll find this as well. Perhaps they're in a group, they don't want to be there, and they may engage in some of these behaviors. The aggressor expresses disapproval of acts, ideas, and feelings of others, attacks the group. So this is just someone who is just really bitter and upset and just might be just saying, "Oh, these are terrible ideas. These are all, you guys are all idiots," that kind of thing. And so that's probably not very helpful in terms of getting the job done. Dominator, asserts authority or superiority, manipulative. So this is somebody who perhaps wants to be in control, wants to control others. And again, it's really all about me with that particular person. And it's not necessarily in terms of getting the task done appropriately. The playboy or the playgirl is basically just uninvolved in the group and kind of just putting their feet up, not really caring about what's going on, and maybe joking around a little bit, but not really involved in what is going on. So again, these are examples of roles in a group that are kind of more individualistic. Okay, the interactionist role theory talks about how roles evolve in a group, and it evolves through the interactions with each other, where so the roles are developing, and it comes about through various ways in which we interact with each other. For example, we might want to, for example, portray to others the kinds of roles that we want to have. We might portray to others the kinds of roles we expect them to play. So with role sending, you're kind of sending information to your fellow group members about what roles everybody should be expected to play, and you're kind of sending that role. With role taking, you might be trying to at least take the perspective, at least temporarily, of other group members to kind of see what they might be experiencing, kind of taking their point of view. With role enactment, you are acting out the role. You're playing those, engaging in those behaviors, acting it out. But you're doing it from the self-presentational point of view. You are presenting yourself in a particular way that you want others to recognize. So I'm presenting a picture of myself to others that I want them to recognize. And in many ways we do this when we engage in groups, because we're not all by ourselves. We are interacting with other people, and we want to create an impression on others. We want other people to perceive us the way we would like them to perceive us. And that's all part of self-presentation. And so the roles develop in this manner according to this theory. Okay, Moreland and Levine has their group socialization theory is another role theory. And it talks about kind of it talks about the development of roles in the group, and it talks about how they become integrated into the group. That's that role socialization, and it also tells us how people can become more estranged from the group as they get towards the end of leaving the group. So in other words, you're socializing into the group, as well as, I guess you could say, unsocializing from the group as you develop on. So with role socialization, you're as a newcomer, you're just learning to what is going on. You're learning what your role is. You're learning what the roles of the other group members are, and you're kind of responding to them. And as you learn the roles and become clearer about it, you start to become more committed to the group. So now, as you become more committed, as you gain more experience, you're no longer now a new member, you're now a full member of the group. And you kind of maintain that for a while. But then as you progress through the group, maybe you're not, you're adapting to each other as, as the group change, you have to change in order to fit in with the group. And at the assimilation process, also the group has to accommodate the new member too. When a new member joins, the group, also has to accommodate that person too. So all of that is a process of becoming integrated into the group. And eventually the person might, go in a different direction than the group, let's say, and may decide to leave. So let's look at one particular way in which a group member can enter and exit a group, and how their roles develop. The first stage, when they are new to the group and they are kind of, perhaps maybe not quite they're not entering the group yet, but just kind of investigating what the group is. When do I want to join it? So like the reconnaissance, kind of, examining what the group is about. You might be recruited into the group and they ask you to join, and now you have to think about, do I want to enter this group? So here's a critical point. the entry into the group is a critical point in this process. So now you enter the group, you are now a new member. Okay? During this new member, you are engaging in socialization. You are assimilating to the group. You're saying, okay, what does the group expect me to, how does this group expect me to behave? And I'm going to try to do that. The group says, here comes the new member. How should we welcome this person in? How can we interact with this person in an effective way? And so that's the accommodation process. So you go through this back and forth, assimilation, accommodation, for a while, and you become more comfortable with your roles. You become accepted as a full member, and that is another critical point where you feel as if okay, I'm now accepted. Sometimes you'll have groups that'll have like some kind of a ceremonial initiation. Once you're in the group, okay, well, now that you've been in the group for a while, now you've passed the probationary period, and now we're initiating you as a full member. Okay, may not be anything formal like that, but you'll definitely have those circumstances. So now you're a full member. And you're just kind of maintaining this role for a moment, for the time being, and you're maybe you think about maybe your role can change over time, but you're developing that particular you're playing that particular role, playing it well. However, there might be a point in which you feel as if the direction the group is going may be different from the direction you think it should go. And this is where you might have some divergence here. Now, one way in which you can deal with divergence is if you have any kind of conflict with what the group might be doing. You talk it over, you work it out, and maybe the group accommodates to your point of view, or you assimilate to the group's point of view. But that would be a way in which you can converge and go back to being a full member and move and continuing on, maintaining that relationship. On the other hand, if you find that, well, you're just going in two different directions, maybe your expertise is not needed in this particular group anymore, and you may move towards exiting the group. And now, as a former member of the group, you can look back and remember what you experienced, maybe learn from it for your next group activity, let's say. So this is one particular pathway that it can go. Okay? But now this pathway that we just talked about, there may be other pathways that could take. Maybe member B can be enter into the group, be fully committed to the group, and stay that way throughout. New member, full member, doesn't matter. They continue throughout as completely committed very early on. Others may not get that full commitment, and they just may drift away from the group as they are. So they never really become a highly committed full member of the group. Now, roles can be stressful. Sometimes you have circumstances where you have a particular role. Maybe you're given a job to do, and your boss is not, and the people hiring you are not really making it clear what your job is supposed to be. Well, that would give you a sense of role ambiguity. What am I supposed to be doing here? How am I supposed to do this job? And this could be very stressful, obviously. When you want to have some kind of clarity in what you are supposed to do, what your role is supposed to be. And if you lack that kind of clarity, it can be very stressful. Role conflict occurs when maybe you have a particular role in a group, but now there are two clear but inconsistent expectations. Maybe you're expected to be soothe your fellow group members, but maybe you're also supposed to kick them in the ass. and those two roles are different from each other, and maybe having one person to do both of those things, the comforter and the ass kicker, is not going to be very easy for many people. That's two conflicting roles that they have to kind of navigate around, and that's tough. Intra-role conflict occurs when you have a particular role, a single role, and there are inconsistent expectations for that particular role, for the person in that role. And so, in other words, some behaviors you're supposed to do, kind of go against the other behaviors that you're supposed to do too. And so it's that one role that is difficult, that has two different things you got to do, kind of like what we would, what we were just talking about, being the ass kicker as well as being the comforter. And those behaviors really are incongruous, even though they may be part of the same role that you are given. Inter-role conflict occurs when you have to be playing two different roles sometimes. You might be the role of a manager leading your group. You might also be the person who is, who you have to talk to your boss, and you have to be a follower. So you have to be both a manager and a follower. Those are two different roles that require two different behavioral sets, and you may have difficulty in trying to balance all those out in different circumstances. So when you've got multiple roles, it can be certainly stressful here. Ultimately, what you'd really like in a group that you belong to is a good sense of role fit. You should have the kind of attitudes, values, skills, and whatnot that would fit a role very well. If you have an ass kicker personality and you are in the role of comforter, and that is your primary role, you're not going to do a very good job at this. If you are a comforter and an appeaser, you're not going to be doing very well in a job where you have to motivate and really get people moving in a high-stress environment. It's not going to work for you. But you know what? Different people have different skill sets that would make them a good fit for a particular role. So the challenge is in creating groups and creating work groups is finding the right person for the right role. And so I'm not saying that one person is bad and one person is good. It's that one person has a better fit than another, and that is what you'd want to look for. Okay. Different cultures have different issues, different circumstances where they can. Some cultures they can deal with role ambiguity, role stress, a little bit better than in other groups. Okay.